Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our OP's boss was either very brave or very stupid if she thinks it's a good idea to put her hands on an employee who works very close to boiling hot fryer oil. We'll tell you more after a short pause. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Boss tells him to put more fries down until he breaks. This happened to a friend of mine and someone who I've worked with for over 20 years. Let's call him Scott. This story always gets a laugh out of our group, especially since he does voices and acts out what happened. In the late 80s, Scott worked at a Burger King while still in high school. For the first few months, he always worked the late shift, and business was usually slow. The owners were a husband-wife team who, as you can imagine, came down hard all the time on the kids working. For the most part, Scott did not have to deal with them outside them parking late at night with binoculars as they spied on the late crew to make sure they did their job. Then summer hit. With summer vacation, Scott was moved to the lunch team. He was not used to how busy it was and was a bit overwhelmed. His main job was on the fryer. He took care of the fries, onion rings, and chicken sandwiches. The lunch crowd was really starting to build up that first day he was on the day crew, and the wife owner walks by Scott, looks over his shoulder, and in a very harsh voice tells him, "Put down more fries," which Scott does. A few minutes later, she walks by again, even more agitated, and screams, "Put down more fries, we don't have enough." Scott puts down more. A third time she comes by and grabs him by the arm and pulls him around. She got right up in his face and said, "Are you some kind of idiot? I said put more fries down now." So Scott did the only thing he knew how to do. He filled every fryer with as many fries as would fit and loaded every single row with as many fries as you could possibly put down. Soon the basket that held the finished fries was overflowing because he had so many. Well, the boss comes around, raises her hands in the air and starts screaming, "You made too many effing fries!" At which point Scott had enough. He picked up a mustard and ketchup bottle and squeezed them both right into her face and clothes, yelled, "I quit," and stormed out of there. He said he was shaking so bad driving home and was worried the police would show up, but they never did. And our second story. Want to be a selfish bee? Enjoy your orange hair. I'm a hairstylist. Last Wednesday, between clients, I decided to run to the gas station to get an energy drink and was hit by a car coming out of the parking lot. My own car was totaled. The cops came. Both cars were towed from the scene. I texted my next client apologizing and telling her that due to a serious accident, I'd need to reschedule her appointment. She said she needed her hair done before the 4th of July. I was standing in the street, looking at my car in pieces, on the phone with insurance, fielding questions from the cops, and still texted the salon owner asking if anyone could take my client today. The owner said she'd figure it out and would make sure my client could be seen. I passed this info on to the client, who said she only wanted me to do it. I needed to get in ASAP. So in the melee, I'm still worried about this client, who's a bad client and constantly complains about her hair, demands free redos, and only pays about 70% of the typical cost of her services because she managed to manipulate me into that price point when I was a newer stylist. I see in my schedule that I have absolutely no room to fit her in before the 4th, so I walk back to the salon after my car was towed away and just take her anyway. Once I get in, she doesn't ask if I'm okay, doesn't thank me for taking her anyway, but instead launches into a 3-hour-long brag about all the guys who are super into her and how she's dating a business mogul from Newport. The service goes as usual. I finish her hair 3 hours later, and I'm about to take her cape off and send her on her way when suddenly she has a problem with the color. She says it's too ashy. It's the exact same formula and color I've done on her for years. But today it's wrong for some reason. Trying to remain cheerful and professional, I tell her that I'll put a new toner on her, no problem. At this point, my grandma's on my way with my daughter to pick me up. I text my grandma saying I'll be a little later. I tone the client again and blow dry her for a second time. The client insists that the color is still too ashy. I explained that the second toner I used is the most golden toner that exists, and there's nothing less ash that I could put on her except for an opaque sort of gold pigment. She's clearly just being a sadistic bee. At this point, my grandma comes into the salon and asks if I'm ready to go. My client's looking at her and says, "You need to do something else. I can't leave like this." So my grandma goes back to wait in the car. I decide to use a very, very gold color and tone it again for the third time. She comes back to the chair and her hair is noticeably less ashy because it's practically orange. "I hate this," says the client. "I'm going to dinner with the guy from Newport tonight. I liked it better the first time. You need to do something else, just like you did the first time." "I've done your hair 3 separate times at this point," I say, packing my stuff up. "As you know, my grandma and daughter have been outside waiting for me. Unfortunately, there's nothing else I can do, since now there's layers of toner on there and a 4th layer will only make it worse. I hope you have a great week." I took her payment, which she scoffed and forcefully handed to me, and I left. It was maybe not my most professional moment, but I'd been looking for an escape from that client for years, and it was worth it. And our last story. Karen goes to jail. It happened in 2015, so pre-pandemic. The day before Easter, my wife and I helped our kids make colored eggs. Some we dyed, some we painted, and others were just plastic with candy. But my kids doodled little faces on them for fun. On Easter morning, my wife and I went to my parents' house because they live on the edge of the city right next to some woods, and they've got a good 2-acre property with a few scattered apple trees, a garden, a play structure for the kids my dad hand-built, and some decent-sized bushes. Perfect for hiding eggs in. We spent a good hour in the morning placing the eggs in clever but also easy-to-find places for the kids. We also invited a friend of my wife, who was a single mom with a little girl, to join in, and she was overjoyed we invited her. We took a little break to go have a coffee and chat after hiding the eggs, as we'd planned to go out looking for them at noon since it was a little chilly that morning. But my mom suddenly came to us and said there was a lady with kids she'd never seen before hunting for the eggs in the backyard, and her kids were using the blankets we'd set aside for our own egg hunt. They'd been left sitting by the garden for when the hunt was to start, and those thieving little brats just took them without a care. I told my wife to pull out her phone and start recording just in case. My wife and I have both dealt with entitled people long before seeing stories on Reddit, so having video evidence can really help. We then went outside and I demanded to know just what the hell this woman was thinking. The Karen mom was startled when I called out to her, but then got mad at us when I told her to put the eggs back as she was not invited. Since this was 7 years ago, I'll have to paraphrase most of it, as my memory can be pretty garbage at times. Me: "Hey, what do you think you're doing here? This is private property." Karen: "Yeah, don't sneak up on me. What's wrong with you?" Me: "What's wrong with me? You're trespassing on private property and letting your kids steal our eggs." By this point, her 2 crotch goblins had run to hide behind her, and they were blowing raspberries at me. Me: "Give those eggs back. They aren't yours." Karen: "What's wrong with you? They're just little kids. I couldn't afford to give them a good Easter this year, and when we saw all these eggs you were hiding, I just thought maybe you could share. Besides, they're just eggs. Go to the store and get more." Me: "My family lovingly colored and painted those eggs all day yesterday, and you'll give them back, or so help me?" And then the Karen actually slapped me across the face and stomped on my foot at the same time. I got bullied a fair bit as a kid, so it didn't faze me nearly as much as she thought, plus she couldn't stomp or hit very hard at all. So all that just made me angrier, and I'm pretty sure she realized she badly effed up because she started backing away. Me: "Last chance, return the eggs now." Karen: "No, my baby's got them first." I was done with this crap and turned to tell my family to just call the police, and Karen started shouting at me that we can't call the police over some stupid eggs. My dad then went and blocked the side gate, which is how Karen had gotten in. We don't know how she was spying on us since she wasn't even a neighbor to my parents, but when we refused to let her leave, she started screaming hysterically that we were illegally detaining her. The police arrived in about 10 minutes, and by then the Karen had huddled with her kids on the bench by the garden. My wife showed the cops the video of the Karen slapping me, and they quickly told her she was under arrest and forced her kids to give back the eggs and baskets. The Karen started screaming that it wasn't fair, and she just wanted a happy Easter for her kids. Her little crotch goblins didn't make things easy for the police either, as they tried to hit them for arresting their mom. We made a few statements, and the police carted off the Karen and her family. We then re-hid all the eggs, which took longer because we had to double-check any places we'd already hidden eggs to see if they weren't there. The kids were all super upset because someone tried to steal their eggs, too. And it took some work to calm them down, but they all still got their Easter egg hunt and all was well. The Karen, though, more or less got off easy. She pled guilty and only got a month in jail and a fine. And during court, I found out from her soon-to-be ex-husband that they were in the middle of a divorce that Karen had been intentionally dragging out. After court, we didn't see or hear from any of them again. But I'd like to think that the situation gave the dad the edge he needed in the divorce. And it's become a funny story we like to share with people once in a while. What the hell? I have no words for this. The level of entitlement from some people is just beyond belief. I'm glad she got arrested and actually had to serve time for what she did. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.